Hey guys, welcome. Just wanted to start with a different format yet again. Um, no, hey guys, welcome. So I wanted to talk about the La Roja stage 2 that I participated in yesterday. Now, if you're not familiar with the La Roja Tour, it is a tour put on by Team TNP, Team Not Pogi, and they are following the Vuelta. So they are going to be putting on 6 stages of absolute mayhem and chaos. And I got to say, after riding yesterday's stage, it was absolutely fantastic. It is a mass start race, which you guys know I absolutely love mass start races, primarily because it's hard, because it pushes you to your absolute limits. And if you don't push yourself hard, you won't truly find out what you're made of. But it is categorized, and so the category that I was in had a bunch of people in there. There was probably 100 plus riders in the stage when we started off the pen, but I'll leave that for the editing room. But I wanted to at least promote the event out there because it is absolutely fantastic, like I said. So it is 6 stages all across Zwift, and I've got to say it's an absolutely fantastic event. Hope you get a chance to participate. It is open to anybody, so just look in the events menu and you should find the race that is right for you. All right, so as we get ready to head out, like I mentioned, this is stage 2, and I'm in the 550 to 650 category, racing with some absolute legends in Zwift. Now, there is a ton of people in this event. Well over 100 people in this event. As you can see, my graphics are freaking out because I have everything cranked up as high as I can. And when it comes to events like this, I'm noticing my graphics card is not doing well. It's, losing some, some ability there. As you can see, everybody kind of, all the avatars flash on and off, which it kind of looks cool when you see just bikes riding like a bunch of little skeletons in a Halloween Halloween race. But as you can see, about 170 people in the race right now. Again, it is a mass start race, so I'm really just focused on trying to stay with this front group. It's big right now. It's huge. And so I figured, it being a lot of people, a big mass, I'm going to do the best I can to just draft as long as possible. But as you can see, I'm still pushing, upper 200s, low 300s just to stay with this group. Like, you see the little split there. Thought maybe I would lose it, but I ended up staying with that front group. And every time I saw a little split like that, I did my best to kind of push forward and hold on as long as I can. So as we get ready to hit the caverns here, I wanted to. You see, there's a couple riders up front. Can't quite see it there, but if you look in the horizon, you'll see there's a couple little dots there for riders that have gone up front. And as we start to get there, you can see I enabled the rider stats because I wanted to see what my average watts were. And right now I'm averaging over 300 watts, which I was excited about. For 5 minute power, 5 minute effort, pretty good. Lots of surging, couple little breaks, and couple little potential splits in between. But as you can see, I'm starting to struggle. My heart rate's in the 170s, and I am feeling it. My legs are hurting, which I found out my legs are hurting because my seat post decided to lower itself a few millimeters, basically putting me in a position where I'm using my quads more than all my leg muscles. And so I'm starting to fall apart a little bit, and I know that I can't continue to push this hard. And so as this, group is starting to stretch out, I know that, as we go through this, there's going to be a slight 2% uphill. And I know if I don't make it there, I'm not going to make it. So you got Ryan Condon right behind me. And as he starts to pass me, I'm like, all right, we got a solid group here. It's starting to split up. You can see the gap starting to grow little by little, and I'm thinking like, all right, I can do, I can surge up and do my best to catch the group. But as I'm pushing, I'm not, I'm not going slow. Like I'm pushing 400 plus watts and not really making up that ground over this, 1-2%
Oh
hump.
my
And I
God.
just, at that point, I was like, what, I can't push myself hard enough and then end up, hurting myself later on. And so as you can see, I latched onto this group of 5, and then other riders started coming up around me. And I was like, all right, we got a little, we got a group here. I saw that Ryan was in this group. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to hold on to Ryan as long as I can. He's a great racer, super strong rider, truly has built up a lot of power over the last year or so. So I was like, if I can hold on to his wheel, then I can make it to the end. And that's basically what the plan became from here on out. It was just a matter of me doing the best that I can to hold on as long as possible until we get to the end. Now, I want to jump in here and give a shout out to not only Ryan Condon, but also Ray from Tactical Watts. So, Ray and I have been talking over the last couple of days, and he's, we're talking about different things in an event that we're looking to put together. We haven't solidified anything, so I don't want to talk about that, but I do want to at least mention it because I feel like the U.S. racers, Zwift racers, and the UK Zwift racers really have bridged a historical gap. We truly do our best to not only have fun on the platform, but encourage each other, drive each other. And I've got to say, the UK side of Zwifting, you guys stay up incredibly late. Like I am an early bird when it comes to sleep. 9 o'clock and I'm already starting to fall asleep. If I'm awake by 10, I'm out. Like my brain's done. My body's like, no more. Let's go to sleep. Let's not even bother. And so, getting messages from these guys at evening my time, knowing that they're up middle of the night. Mike Bell, shout out to you because Jesus, dude, you can stay up late. It's awesome to have these relationships and to form these bonds, and knowing that there's other racers around the world that are encouraging you to not only participate in these events, but also making sure that they're seeing and testing your abilities. And so that's kind of where, when I saw that Ryan was in that group, I was like, all right, I can, I know I can hold on to his wheel. I've always wanted to race with him. I've seen his growth over the last year, going from a strong DCAT rider to now into a strong B pace group rider. And that for me has always fascinated me because he is, leveled up big time. And I think more so once he got his Zwift ride, you can see his true performance versus his previous bike setup on his watt bike. I honestly believe the watt bike was underreporting his power significantly because as soon as he got to the Zwift ride, you can truly see where his potential is at and his growth. And so seeing that he was in this group, now I didn't at the time know that Ray was in this group. I was just riding. I saw the U.S. Army jersey, so I was like, okay, cool. Another U.S. or UK Army rider in there. Again, they are super strong, so shout out to them. I was like, if I can hold on to their wheels, I can definitely do my best to get to the end of the line. Now, this is a pretty flat stage. Like, it's the only terrain that we really have is climbing around the volcano, climbing through the through the long bridge up to the desert area, and then climbing up where the Italian villas are at. Like that's it. That's all the climbing we really have. Oh yeah, and coming out of the tunnel. That's all the climbing we have. That's not a lot, and it's not difficult.
This is the only race I'm doing. Comma, let me help on the front.
And so while we were doing that, I messaged everyone in the chat like, hey, I'm not going to participate in any other of these events. Like that wasn't my plan. My plan was It's Sunday. I don't have anything to do. I wanted to do a heat training ride, but I was kind of debating it. And then I saw Mike Bell and Ray and a couple others in Discord talking about this event. Darren, shout out to you as well. Fantastic racer, did a fantastic job. And so, as I was seeing them, talk about this, I'm like, fine. Like, everybody's going to participate in this. And I'm here like, well, I'll just do a heat training ride. My heat training's at like 80 something percent acclimated. It truly, I got to say, it's been helping me, but I'll talk about that in another video because I have some thoughts. And so I was like, great. A lot of people participating. Why not just, I wasn't sure how long the race was. I honestly thought it was going to be a lot longer. I thought it was going to be like a 40-kilometer stage, 50-kilometer, because some of these one-off race leagues, tours, whatever it is, they tend to use longer routes and hillier routes to really showcase who are the strong racers and who are not. And so I honestly thought it was a longer race. I signed up for it, didn't look at the details, and just kind of went to bed. And so the next day I started looking at the details. I'm like, all right, it's not that, not that long, no big deal. Check the route. I was like, oh, it's a flat route. And so I was like, all right, I'll just, I'll use my disc wheels, the DT 85, whatever disc wheels, whatever the name is, super, super long name. I'll just have it scroll like a marquee across the screen. And so I was like, all right, got a bunch of, the typical riders that we ride with on Mondays, as well as others, kind of building this community of racers that we're all, kind of hitting in together, helping each other out, or just friendly competition. Doesn't matter. Have fun. And so I see everybody's in there. I decided, what, I'm just going to go in there. I'll jump in, have some fun, and see how the race goes. And so this is really what I wanted to talk about when it comes to this race, specifically this stage, is sprinting. When it comes to stage races, when it comes to sprinting, I absolutely love torturing myself to get to a good sprint finish. Now, this time around, again, I didn't know the event details. I didn't know whether or not segments counted. My focus was on get to the end, and then I will sprint as hard as I can. And whoever can stay with me, then that, if they choose to participate in other events, then that should help them further down the road. Now, the mistake I made is I didn't actually announce that when I did my sprint, or before I did my sprint. I was like, hey, I'm just going to go. I was so mentally drained by that point that I was like, I just need to get to the end, get my sprint over with, and see how we do. And so I went for it. And I really, again, I like to do long sprints. And the reason why I wanted to comment on this is because I jumped onto Ray's stream after the event was over. And right as I jumped onto his stream, he's commenting that he's like, oh, Miguel went early. Now, again, I didn't know he was in the same bunch that I was in. I was just riding. I was trying to see the names. I was trying to pay attention to who's in there, who's not. So that way, if I can message them and be like, hey, I'll do, take turns, I'll do work. Because again, I was not going to race any other, I had not planned at this point, on racing any of the other races. So I was like, this is a one-off for me. I'm going to give it all I got, have some fun with it, and just, go for it. And as we start to approach the, as I jumped onto Ray's stream, I hear him talking about, that he thought I might have gone too early. And so I messaged him. I was like, no, I went exactly when I needed to go. I like long distance sprinting. And by long distance, I mean 400 or 500 meters. If I can, I'm working my way up to building my legs and my cardiovascular out to about 700 meters, 800 meters. I really want to conquer that 750 meter sprint in the France map. And so that is my focus, is, building a longer sprint base. And I know that when you sprint that level distance, people who can't sprint, who aren't sprinters, won't be competitive. And that's, I messaged him afterwards. I let him know. I was like, hey, first off, I'd like to use a clip of your video because I love watching it from your group's perspective and from your perspective. And the reason why I did that is because if you look at his race, and again, I'll clip it and talk about it in a moment, but when you look at his, you can see the different dynamics of when I go, when other people choose to go, and what happens basically between me and everybody else. And so I'll go ahead and jump to that. All right, so before we take a look at Ray's view of the race, again, at this point, I've been trying to pay attention to see who's in there. I've seen the UK Army jersey rolling around, but trying to read names on that chart is not actually like easy to do while you're racing. And Ray's last name is just long enough to be illegible to me while I'm riding. So I really did not know he was in this. I see his name now that I'm looking at the looking at the race, in the editing room, but I didn't realize he was in there. So at this point, I'm just, I was doing my best to hold on, and I see this guy go off the front, and I'm like, I don't understand why. Like at 2 kilometers to go on this stage, every single time a Zwift race ends on this sprint, at 2 kilometers to go, people always speed up, and then as we start to hit this roundabout, they start to slow down again. And it honestly, it frustrates me because people speed up, I guess, with the intention to, try and solo it to the finish. But in reality, not many people have the ability to do that. And so we end up with, this pretty big group. And at this point, I'm exhausted. As you can see, my body temperature is at 102.6. My heat strain index is 4.4, which is high, but it's not as high as it can go. It can go up to 6, and 6 is like you need to stop and like cool yourself down type of pressure. But I'm doing my best to just kind of hold my own, stay in this group, because I know at this point I'm gonna sprint, I'm gonna give it all I got, and that is gonna be where the stage ends. And so as we start to round the corner, everybody's starting to slow down. And I thought it was hilarious because I see my watts drop and I'm like, man, everyone's really slowing down. I was like, all right, well, we'll see how this sprint's going to go. We'll see who are going to be the people that sprint. And so I launch my sprint and I start to speed up and just basically blow past the group. Now, I don't mind sprinting off the front because of this reason. As you can see, I've already got a 1 second gap on a couple of guys. I got Darren coming up behind me, and even then I'm pulling away and got a 1 second gap. As soon as I see that I got that 1 second gap, I start to slow down a bit. My legs were hurting, as you can see, my heart rate's in the mid 180s. My watts start to come down, and I was like, you know what, let me change gears. Let me just keep spinning as hard as I can so I can hold it as long as I can. And sure enough, I crossed the line in the best of the rest for this group. And so I thought that was that. And so, like I said, I jumped into Ray's stream, and so let's check that out. And so as we start approaching, I started from as we start approaching the sprint. And the reason why I did that is because, like I said, I wanted to see from his perspective, how things went. And so I'm over in the bottom left corner. You can't really see me at the moment, but I start to launch my sprint, and you'll see me pull through the group ahead. And at that moment, Ray was like, hey, Miguel's going early. And as you can see from his perspective, you see that bunch that starts to come up behind me and, pulling ahead. But you can see that I've already got a large gap on them. You see Ray's now pushing through. And this is where, like I said, this is when I sprint, my focus is setting up this scenario here. You've got guys that are sprinting and sprinting well, but you've got Ray, who's really probably the strongest sprinter of the group, pulling through everybody and starting to, make his way towards the front. And like I mentioned to him afterwards on Discord, I was like, hey, and so I mentioned to Ray, I was like, hey, if you had another 10 meters, you'd have come in right behind me. Because he, as you can see from his video, he flew through that group. And by me going early, what it ends up doing is it creates this long line of people. And that long line of people, for the guys that end up sprinting a little bit later, is the perfect train you need to just really plow through and basically showcase your power, because you're plowing through everybody, you're getting maximum draft, and all it comes down to is timing and a little bit of extra power, and you can make it, basically, come in right after everybody else. Now, generally, I don't last that long when it comes to the sprints. I end up, midway through, or 3/4 of the way through, I end up, starting to falter, and I end up having to stop. And so what ends up happening is the racers that are going to win the race end up basically coming up behind me, plowing through me, and I get them, basically deliver them as close to the line as possible. And that's kind of how I look at my sprints. Like, I am just building out as strong and as fast of a sprint train as possible, so that way the person that's going to win, they basically can just fly through me, and I can deliver them to the line. And that's ultimately what I thought would happen, but I had just enough power and more than enough distance to basically just keep going all the way to the end, and like I said, win the best of the rest. And so that was that. All right, guys, so hope you enjoyed that breakdown. Again, if you haven't looked up the La Roja Tour, please check it out. Look it up. It is a fantastic race. And I got to say, Team Napogi, chapeau. Great courses, looking at the event, the stages you chose, the courses, the routes you chose, absolutely fantastic. Truly a good, I honestly think what you guys put together is probably the best Zwift racing on Zwift. Like, yeah, FRR has some great maps. ZRL has some great maps. FRR is tough. Like, FRR brings out the tough racers because it is hour to an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes of climbing, of all out racing, of tough sprint segments. Rich is absolutely crazy, and I love the guy because he puts together fantastic racing. ZRL, great racing, but at the same time, I feel like it's akin to Z racing, where it's like great stages, get to experiment with some stuff, but it's truly meant for the new to Zwift racing racers. Now, this TNP La Roja Tour. I'm going to pause it there real quick. I know it's Roja, not Rosa. Jesus, I said it wrong so many times. Sorry, guys. Absolutely fantastic. I love it. I think it's just challenging enough to bring out the people who like Zwift racing but want to move on, and maybe not doing Club Ladder or not doing WTRL every week and stuff like that, but also not ready to do the 10, 12, 20 day stage races. So again, great event. Good job, guys, putting it together. And hope you guys, for any of you that are out there and want to participate, again, I will put the event details out there so you can check it out. Look it up, participate, have a great time, and I'll catch you guys on the next race.